Hey, welcome to the Glen Podcast, the best podcast you'll listen to all day. Sponsored by Mission Blueprint. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Good to have Dennis with me here.
Hey, Glenn.
How you doing, buddy?
Oh, it's a beautiful day in paradise.
It's gorgeous weather in South Dakota. Although this is coming out in about 3 weeks, there'll probably be snow on the ground.
Oh, you know, this is the great time of the year. You wake up and it's wintertime.
Yep.
And then around 11, spring shows up. And then by 5 o'clock, it's summer. And then by 6:30, it's fall. You get all the seasons in one day.
It's great.
It's awesome.
If you got your tomatoes outside, you're in trouble.
Your pumpkins, too.
Pumpkins, too. You better get them out. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about the warning. And I'm warning you today about the warning.
The warning.
There's going to be a warning. So listen, there's been some several Catholic prophecies about a warning that's coming sent by God. Now, why would you need a warning? If you've missed the game, the world's in, I think, what I would call a satanic structure.
Oh, it's definitely turmoil.
It is a mess, and I'm not laughing at it, but it is a mess we're in right now. And if you can't see that, if you think everything's the same it was in the 1980s, then you have been sipping the wrong Kool-Aid.
There are so many people that are not even aware of what is happening in Israel right now. Enormous. With the number of patients I see each week, no clue. Not a clue.
Yeah, we are on the brink of WW3, and I don't think many people know it.
No, it's empathy, it's apathy, it's not going to happen. Why would it happen? Yeah, there's no focus on the biblical warnings, the area and the region of the world. I just had this discussion with my buddy last night, Chris. He's like, you ever notice America's not in the Bible? I'm like, well, yeah, it's kind of written before America was even a thing. Christopher Columbus hadn't even sailed yet, had he? No, 1492.
1492.
Yeah, so I don't even know if the Romans knew that we were over here. But anyhow, he just did this point that there's no America, there is no us in the Bible. It all talks about Jesus' return to the east gate of Jerusalem. So,
yeah, is that a new Jerusalem? Is it a new Israel? Because we would say as Catholics, the temple has been rebuilt upon Peter, right? The rock. That's some good Catholic Protestant debate.
There you
Although
go.
he's no fun to debate with because we agree too much on
but
the
why wouldn't
obvious
you?
things.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? There isn't that much between where I stand and you stand. There's a couple things
There's
different.
a couple big ones.
That's why I'm not standing on top of you.
That's right.
But
He will be. Give him some time. Do you
okay,
know why?
We're still recruiting.
Do you
Our
know
church
why?
is open.
Because you're a very bright guy, and you'll see through it eventually.
I feel very dim today.
Let me shut up and just get to the topic. ladies and gentlemen. But there is the appearance of a warning that is supposed to happen. And so I wrote a few things down. I want to go through a few people that have talked about a warning in the Catholic Church. Now, there's a lot of Protestant, I would say, prophets that may have had warnings. Listen, if you're not Catholic and if you know about that, please write that into the notes, the comments,
Comment
on
section
YouTube.
below.
The
That was
notes.
very
The
like
notes.
dancing fingers.
Write them into the notes, please. Take notes for me as well so I know what the heck I'm talking about here.
That's right.
But let's go all the way back to St. Edmond. St. Edmond is a Catholic saint from England around the 1540-ish, and he prophesied that there will be a great warning to the world and that one day all men and women will be revealed that God is the one true God.
Didn't that happen when Jesus died on the cross?
That was 1,500 years before this. So this prophecy was in 1540.
So he was going to be revealed again.
Again.
Oh.
Something's going to happen again where everyone will know that Jesus is King of Kings, Lord of Lords.
But go back to the Old Testament. How many times did God have to appear, reappear, perform miracles to prove to the people that he was God? We just read the Bible story to our kids about Jezebel and the ball.
She's a beauty.
Oh, she was. But how Elijah called 140 of the Baal.
Oh, yeah, that's a great story. The Baal prophets.
Baal prophets to strike down fire onto their burnt offering bull, or on their bull as a burnt offering.
Yeah.
And for a whole day, nothing. And Elijah's like, watch this. And he digs a trench and he piles up 12 stones and he throws the bull's meat on top of there and he douses that full of water and he stands at the edge of the ring and calls on God and bam, bolt of lightning melts the rocks and everything's gone. And all the prophets are just, it's like stoned to death in a minute. But how many times has God had to prove himself over and over and over again? We're just stupid people.
We are a pitiful people, and I include myself in that, ladies and gentlemen.
Me too.
I really do. I am no better or worse than anybody. I'm just a normal guy. But I want to talk about this warning. We have Saint Edmond, who speaks about a warning in 1540. If you stay in the late 1500s, early 1600s, there's a woman by the name of Sister Mariana Torres. She's from Quito, Ecuador, and Jesus told her, and I want just to read this here, shortly after the year 2000. Now, Jesus is telling this to Saint Mariana. Shortly after the year 2000, just when it all appears lost, Our Lady and I will come down from heaven and chain Lucifer and cast him into hell and convert the human race. Now, this was approved by the local bishop the very same day. So if you're not a Catholic, you might think, well, who cares? What's the big deal? For Catholics, it's a big deal because usually if there's an apparition, someone's seeing Jesus or Mary, you kind of test it out. You kind of have conversations. Are you crazy? What's going on with this person? And here, the bishop the same day approved it. And also, St. Mariana, and I think there's a few other sisters, they're all incorrupt, which means their bodies are decaying at such a slow pace you can't tell they're dead.
No kidding, that's a thing?
Oh my gosh, we need to do an Incorruptibles tour. I actually did an Incorruptibles tour when I was in Europe. I saw, 5 Incorruptibles. Now,
didn't Disney make a movie about the Incredibles?
Ladies and gentlemen, some of the Incorruptibles are looking kind of rough. I mean, some of them are 700, 800, 1,500, well, maybe not 1,500 years old, but they're pretty old. So, but the body does decay, but at such a slow rate. In other words, God has done something in that person that is extraordinary, right? Padre Pio, you can go to YouTube.
Okay.
And YouTube Padre Pio.
YouTube Padre Pio.
He died in 1968. He's incorrupt still.
1968?
He died in 1968. I know it's not that long ago.
Padre Pio.
Saint Padre Pio.
Isn't he the one we talked about that rode his little boat from Sicily or whatever? The one that...
Sicily.
Didn't he get beat up in a prison cell?
That was Jay Leno.
Oh.
Padre Pio, I don't know what you're talking about.
We did the podcast on Buffet. The guy from Transformers. The kid.
Oh, yeah. The kid from Transformers. Yeah, that's the same guy. Padre Pio. I haven't seen that movie. By the way, have you seen that movie?
I have not. Okay. So we'll pick back up.
Yeah, Padre Pio, we should, again, just do a podcast on him alone.
Padre Pio.
Yeah, he gets into the 3 days of darkness, which I'm not going to touch on in this podcast.
Is that another warning?
That's we're getting to that. That's the chastisement that could happen when the warning comes and if people don't turn their hearts to Christ, then, of course, we're going to get spanked by our dad.
Well, I mean, that's what God, again, did in the Old Testament, right? He dried up all the creeks and created such drought for the Egyptians and took care of the Israelites.
Right. I mean, what is really a chastisement? It's not so much that God punishes you. I mean, it is that. But it's really that we pull away from God and his grace, and we suffer because of it. And all these things that we had are now missing because we stepped out of his presence. We had
because we thought that stuff was important.
Yeah, like sports. And I love sports. But I don't care if any of my boys ever play sports.
Comforts
ever.
of home and food and plenty. We talked about this last night, too, that the people who are listening and you and I, let's be honest, we've really never suffered. Like, we've really never suffered. Like, maybe things have gotten a little tight. Maybe things have gotten a little hairy. Maybe they've gotten a little stressful. But we have not suffered. Like, imagine that boatload of people that just came into Mexico. 22 people on a dinghy, essentially, sailed from basically the Ivory Coast, Congo region of Western Africa, across the entire Atlantic.
Wow.
22 people in a boat that was as big as this room.
Wow. That's pretty small.
And they made it. Now, you can't tell me that you wouldn't stink. You'd be short on food. You'd pee and defecate over the edge of the boat. Like,
yeah, our suffering is, oh no, who finished the cheese?
Yeah.
I got to get in my car and go 2 minutes and buy more. Oh, it's horrible.
or you go to a Walmart and the shelf is empty.
Yeah.
That's a warning. That's a
you
real
know,
warning.
The lack of toilet paper is a touch of suffering. It's not quite as bad. Getting back to the warning, and this is a serious matter, ladies and gentlemen, but there's another not a young lady, but her name is Luisa Picaretta. And she has suffered the pains of Christ. You know, in the Catholic Church, like Padre Pio, sometimes Catholics would get the wounds of Christ. We call the stigmata, right? This woman suffered as well. Jesus told her that the church will go through its own passion, just like he did. And the whole world would become something like the Garden of Eden again. It will turn us back to original innocence. And I was listening to Father Blount. He's really one of my favorites, if not my favorite Catholic priest to listen to, because I think he's a priest that's got it all. You know, he said, "We will no longer be ruled by the New World Order. That'll be it."
What is the New World Order?
Yeah, earlier I talked about a satanic structure that we're in.
Sure.
And what is a satanic structure? I think we are under the auspice of the some would call the Illuminati. Some would call the New World Order. Some would call this is closer to my heart, the Freemasons.
The occult.
The occult. Ultimately, the Church of Satan. And I know that sounds really strong, ladies and gentlemen, but what are we dealing with? John Paul II said we live in a culture of death. And so where you see death, you really see the evil one's face. And again, I know some of you are pro-choice. Good luck with that when you die. I mean, seriously, it's not going to work out well for you. But think about all the abortions that are happening.
Child sacrifice.
Yeah, this is child sacrifice. This is the altar of Satan. In America, we think we're the greatest country in the world. Maybe we really are. But when you think about all the abortions, all the pornography, all the crap that comes out of this country, how can we be the greatest country in the world? You know, is Russia really that bad? Because they are evil to us. And I'm not so sure if Russia's even that bad. I mean, I'd love to live in Poland. That'd be a great country. Go ahead.
I think Slavia.
As in Czechoslovakia?
Yeah. Or just, Austria, Slavia, right in that region.
I lived in Austria. Really, prices were high, but wonderful people.
Yeah. That's how you keep the foreigners out.
Yeah, so I don't know. But something's coming according to St. Edmund, Mariana Torres. Even Faustina prophesied about a great warning. And here's another phrase, an illumination of conscience. I want to get to that, okay?
Okay.
So let's now fast forward to Garabandal. Garabandal is an event that happened in the 1960s. 4 kids from the village there saw St. Michael the Archangel. And then eventually Mary appeared. St. Michael said, Our Lady is coming to see them. And there was a message that they gave the world. I think it was June 18th, 1962. I could be wrong on that. I'll get the correct date for you. I should have wrote it down. And then there was a minor miracle. What's the minor miracle? The minor miracle is St. Michael said he's going to give communion to the 4 kids. And this was actually caught on videotape. And I have seen this on YouTube. I'm not sure if it's scrubbed off or not, but let me try to find that and I'll put it in our show notes. But you watch these little kids with their tongues open and all of a sudden a host appears in their tongue. And it's really quite something. One of the messages is a warning to all the priests, bishops, and cardinals, saying many of them will perish in the eternal flames. So that's a little scary, to be honest with you.
October 18th, 1961.
I was close.
October 18th.
October 18, 1961. What's today's date? October 17th. That we're recording is 2023. So that would be tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Wow. Wouldn't that be crazy if, I'll tell you what, make you a deal. I'll get this uploaded, and if something happens tomorrow, I'll post this tomorrow.
Okay.
All right?
Deal.
But I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know. But
Who knows?
But anyway, In Garabandal, which has not been approved by the Catholic Church yet, Medjugorje hasn't been approved yet. Fatima wasn't approved for 30 years. So it's not like we can talk about Garabandal. We certainly can. And especially to the non-Catholics who know nothing about Garabandal, what happened. So these 4 kids, Mary was spending time with them, sometimes a short amount of time, sometimes a very long amount of time, up to 4 hours. She would just spend time talking to them. And the 4 out of the 4 visionaries, Conchita, I think, is the leader of them. She must have been the oldest. And Conchita is still alive today. I think she lives in America. Anyway, Conchita said that God will give the world a warning. And she said, they pressed her on this. Somebody asked her, well, what will the warning look like? And she said, it'd be like 2 stars colliding. But everyone will know that this comes from God. And what comes with this warning, ladies and gentlemen, Dennis, is what is called the illumination of conscience.
Illumination of conscience.
So your conscience will be illuminated. What does that mean? According to Garabandal, I don't know if this is from Our Lady or Conchita, but my understanding is everyone will see their souls for the way it is. And when does that happen? Well, that happens when you die. Right? When you die, then the soul and the body separate, and you walk into this light of Christ, you see yourself for who you are. So when you die, ladies and gentlemen, it's not like Jesus says, what have you done to me? What have you done? You already know. Because when you're standing in his light and you're looking at your soul, you already know where you're heading. So that the initial judgment isn't like Jesus has to tell you. It's not some big secret like, well, I've been talking to God the Father, and we kind of think, no. You'll know right away where you're headed.
Didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, that's a thing. So, again, there's really 2 options, and this is where the Protestants think we Catholics have 3 options. We don't. You're either going to heaven or going to hell. Purgatory is not another option. It's a probability because when you die, the chances are you having some sins unrepented, you haven't taken care of. Yep. Maybe you're dying and...
no last rites.
Yeah, no last rites. Or maybe your wife says something to you and you're like, would you leave me alone, woman? Mm-hmm. That's a horrible thing to say when you're dying and you're dead.
Give me a minute. Yeah. Give me a minute.
Yeah. Would you leave the room so I could die, please? Because I'm sick of seeing.
I want to die in peace.
The illumination of conscience, you will see your souls for what they really are. Now, this can happen. One of these days, I'll try to get my friend, Father Rick Wendell. Rick and I met close to 30 years ago. And he stayed with me once, maybe twice in Rapid City. And he's a priest in the I'm not sure what diocese he's in right now. I just can't remember.
This is Wendell?
Wendell. Rick Wendell. And you can go to YouTube and type in Father Rick Wendell, and you can hear his testimony. He died. He was dead for, I don't know how many minutes, 40-some minutes. And he came back to life.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Lazarus. So when Rick died, at some point, and I can't remember his testimony, but at some point he saw all the sins that he had ever committed. And if I remember right, Rick, you please correct me, but if I remember this right, he knew he was headed to this pure blackness, darkness. He knew where he was going.
Wow.
And then he woke up.
And then saw the darkness.
Oh yeah, he woke up and his mother had said something like, Rick, or Jesus, send Rick back to me. I need him. And then he woke up after 45 minutes, maybe it was 2 hours. They kept him on all the, he was in the hospital. He went to the hospital. A little bit of
life support.
Well, yeah, he went to the hospital because he cut himself on the hand. And so, yeah. And so his mom took him to the hospital. She said, let me stop at the store and grab a couple things. And so while she was in the store, the hospital was right next door, basically.
Sure.
A block away. He started thinking about things and his heart started pounding harder and harder. And Rick was a young man. I don't know how old he was. I'm thinking he was in his early 40s, late 30s. And he knew he was in trouble, so he goes into the grocery store and he sees his mom checking out and he falls down to the ground.
No kidding?
Yep. And they...
Done.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
If I remember it right, again, listen to the testimony for inaccurate, but this is how I remember. This is a long time ago. And then the ambulance got him, and everyone knew his mother at the hospital because I think she worked there or volunteered, one or the other. I thought she was a nurse there. And he was gone. And so they kept everything hooked up to him, and they said, take your time. When you're ready, we'll take all the instruments off of him.
Wow.
And so after, I don't know how long, he came back to life. As soon as she said, again, this prayer is wrong, but she said something like, Jesus, bring Rick back to me. I need him now. I need him. And his arm that had been, I think, maybe laying over the gurney or something, just came up and grabbed her head and put her head to his chest. Yeah.
And this guy's from where?
He's from Minnesota originally, but he's a priest, and I can't remember what diocese Rick is in.
But he's still in the work.
Oh, yeah. I haven't talked to him, but I think we should get Rick on the podcast.
We should get him on the podcast.
We can have him call in.
Let's do him. Or go to him. Let's go to him.
Well, that'd be even better.
You do it at his parish.
So Rick had an illumination of conscience where he saw all the sins. And he's not the only one. Other people throughout the world have had an illumination of conscience where they see all their sins. What Garabandal is saying is that there's going to be a warning and then an illumination of conscience. And then if the world collectively repents and turns back to God, then there won't be a great chastisement. There's another sister in Akita that says we cannot avoid a chastisement. It's coming no matter what.
Really? Mm-hmm. So what does a chastisement look like?
It could be tornadoes. It could be bombs. It could be fire. Fire falling from the sky is what I recollect from Akita. I'm not exactly sure what the chastisement is going to look like. It could be a huge
like
world
people in
war.
Israel already there.
Yeah, I mean, we could lose a third of the people on this planet. Wow. I mean, it's possible.
Isn't that kind of the goal, though, for George Soros or Bill Gates is like get it down to like 5 billion or 500,000 people?
Yeah. Somehow, do you remember hearing about the Georgia Stones? The Georgia Stones, I don't know when they went up. I think in the early 90s. Again, don't trust me.
Georgia Stones.
I think they're called the Georgia Stones.
Okay.
There might be another name for it. But they went up in the early 90s. Again, don't trust me on the dates. Yeah, I want you to fact check me.
I'm fact checking.
Yeah,
You tell the story.
Never check. Never. If I give you a date, heck, I can't even remember my kids' names. I can't remember dates. Although I got October 18 right, but 19. Anyway, yeah, there's supposed to be a huge reduction of the goal was a huge reduction of population because somehow we're overcrowded. And for those of you who think we're overcrowded, have you been to Wyoming? I mean, have you driven through the middle of Wyoming? Have you driven through the middle of South Dakota?
I have.
Yes, and there's not much there.
Oh, there's a lot there. A lot of air. A lot of grass.
A lot of places to put a 4x4 hut up, I'll tell you that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Georgia Stones found them.
What year were they built?
From 1980 to 2022. They're 19 feet, 3 inches tall.
They were. Because they've been blown up somehow. Lightning hit them. Anyway, this all leads up to what is called the Great Chastisement. If after the illumination of souls, but we're kind of all over the map today, aren't we?
We are. We
Yeah.
are. The Georgia Stones were blown up on June 6th of 2020.
They were.
Yep. By an explosive device.
Oh. So it wasn't lightning from the sky.
Nope. Somebody detonated it at 4 a.m.
Yeah, it reminds me of...
according to Wikipedia.
Do you remember when Pope Benedict resigned? Yeah, you're not Catholic. You probably don't follow him very much.
No, I didn't.
But when he resigned in 2013, lightning hit the Vatican that same night.
Get out. For real?
Yeah, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, it's like stuff's going on. So I am concerned that a great warning is about to happen. And I want to end with a story that really happened in Aberdeen, South Dakota.
Story time.
Again, it didn't happen to me, but a friend of mine was telling me this story of a woman who was driving her car 100 miles an hour early in the evening. And I can't remember what time of year it was even, but I was in the National Guard. We had guard drill. And so here's the story. I was in the guards, and I think it was my friend Glen told me about something that happened the night before. Did you hear what happened about the lady near Redfield? I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, a lady in Redfield early in the evening picked up a hitchhiker. He looked like an old man. And so he went and sat in the back of her car, and they started talking. And all of a sudden, the hitchhiker said, you better change your ways in America or God is going to punish you. And she said, what? And he said, if you don't change your ways in this country, God is going to punish you. And then he disappeared.
Out of the back of the car?
Yeah.
No. Really?
Yeah. So anyway, she looked back and he was gone, and she flipped out. Her foot hit the accelerator, and she was going over 100 miles an hour because she couldn't figure out what was going on. She thought she was going crazy.
Like hysteria.
So an HP pulled her over, and she was hyperventilating or couldn't believe what was happening. And the HP said, ma'am, you're going really, really fast. What's going on? She said, officer, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. He said, well, try me. She said, okay, well, I picked up this guy. He was an older guy, and he looked like he needed help. So I picked him up, and we started talking very friendly. And then he said, if America doesn't change its ways, God's going to punish us. And then I looked, and he was gone. And the HP said, ma'am, I do believe your story because about a half an hour ago, I picked up someone else, and the same exact thing happened.
No kidding?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. So this is already in the 90s, early 90s, that God has been sending his angels to tell us, you better wake up, otherwise you're going to be in big trouble. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Conchita in Garabandal is 70-some years old, and she is supposed to witness the Great Warning. And she might have another 25 years left. That's possible. But she's going to tell us 8 days before when something happens. Are you falling asleep on me?
Mm-hmm.
You are falling asleep on me?
I was.
Oh. Are you serious? Were you really?
No, I was thinking back on this, the story, because there was another one. I don't know if you told me, but I was trying to place it. Someone else in Minnesota by Marshall had a similar experience with an old lady or a young, picked up somebody in the car. They were talking, and then he just vanished. And I was trying to recall, like, where was that story and how to tie in, but I can't remember the details of it. But your stories, yeah.
Pretty crazy, isn't it?
Wow.
What's your takeaway today? Do you have one?
No, so from a Providence standpoint, we don't talk about stories like this. We don't talk about near encounters, I would say, with the Holy Spirit or premonitions or encounters. And so this is just fascinating to hear because this seems far more common out of the Catholic side of things with the statue that weeps bloody tears or the Virgin Mary appearing in the center of an apple or just these.
I haven't heard that one.
Okay, I don't know. I probably made that one up. But anyhow.
I think you made that one up.
The stigmata and these different things. And it just makes me wonder sometimes as a Protestant, are we missing something that we don't hear it? Or is it because we don't talk about it, we don't see it? Maybe the Protestant side of it, we're missing it because we don't talk about it and we don't look for it and it's not there. But it does happen. Like what we talked about last week with angels, getting the wink from the angel and having that presence be among us. But I'm just fascinated by the stories and the warnings because I'm, you know me, I like politics. And the geopolitics of the world right now goes so much further because it's religious and politics and history and so much stuff we don't pay attention to anymore.
Yeah, I hear you. Again, we think politics are separated from, I'll say religion, but these kinds of conversations about religion, they're right in the middle of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and most people have separated them out of it. And I think one of the things as a Protestant, and I'm completely speculating, so I don't know if this is true, but sometimes I think it's true for Catholics. When we think about the Catholic Church, we want to first think about the Pope and the bishops around him. And that's not wrong to think that way. But I think it's a little unfair because you got to admit, Rome or the Vatican, it's like a corporation. It's really a monarchy, and a lot of stuff goes down that I don't think any of us really want to know. And I'm not talking about sin or immorality, just the way things are handled. And the fact that the Catholic Church has been able to do this for 2,000 years and we have not imploded yet, I think is a testament to itself. So anyway, you get the final word.
As Protestants, I think I've told you this before. I mean, we had the pleasure of Pastor Worm being here and speaking about miracles and angels, and I'm so inspired and on fire every week listening to our pastor Josh Robinson talk, and how he brings the scripture home, and how our elders talk about getting back into praying and fighting this dogma and this fatigue of this world and how to get through it. And I love that we come here and we keep getting our viewers an opportunity to experience faith in a very safe place, in a very neutral territory, that there are definitely some differences, definitely some big things we don't necessarily align 100% on, but that we find so much more. And today, from the Protestant side, to just be humble and listen and go, that is really, really interesting. And wow, like, if she's going to be alive when the revealing comes, then
it's likely you and I will be alive.
Right. Well, if she was a child in 1961, make her 15, that would make her, 46 years old, and add 23, so she'd be 67 years old.
I think she's 71 or something like that.
So, I mean, that'd make her 15 years old when she had this experience. So you're talking 71-year-old person. I mean, she could live another 30 years.
She might be younger than that.
But who knows? Like, just the fact that we're alive in these times is exciting, because we know where we're going to go with a little bit of faith. But wow, we will suffer. The world is going to suffer.
I said you had the final word, and I lied. I'm going to get
you
the final
take
word.
it.
Well, because as I'm sitting here thinking, many of you are wondering, well, what am I supposed to do now? What do I do with all this information? You know, the thing I want you to do is panic. No, don't panic.
Sure, but panic towards Christ. Like, put your faith.
Yeah, don't panic. I would say everyone, for the Catholics, when's the last time you've been to confession? Get to confession. Number one. Number two, try to get to a couple of daily masses a week. You know, it'd be great if you went every day. And but just try to. And really, I think what might even be as important, I know there's great debate in the Catholic Church, I think the most important thing is your personal prayer life with Jesus. Because out of that personal prayer life, then you will have a desire to go to Mass. You will have a desire to go to confession. You will have a desire to live the Father's will for you. But without a personal prayer life, you might not have those desires. Now, I'm sure there are people who go to daily Mass or weekly Mass, and they feel good about that, but yet you may not know Jesus in the most deep personal way as you could in this earth. And that's really the goal. So what do? Go to confession. Get to Mass. Catholics, get your rosaries out. Catholics and Protestants, get your Bibles out. Yes, Catholics, get your Bibles out and start chewing on the Word of God. And there's wonderful apps in the Catholic world that you can find. I listened to this app. What is it called? Let me quick look here. I love this app. It's called Pray As You Go. It is some Catholics out of England, I think, but it's not like a Catholic thing. Anyone can listen to it. They have music. They have scriptures that you can do, Lectio Divina. Start chewing on the Word of God. Start asking God to speak to you. Start putting yourself in a position where you can hear God speak, right? Because you might be a prophet and you're too caught up in the NBA and you don't even know it. I mean, the worst thing in the world is you could be a prophet to the nations and you follow the Minnesota Vikings through and through. I mean, why would you? It's just a sport. But that's an idol, one of the idols that we worship today. So I'm going to now shut up and get out of this podcast. But I am grateful that you listened. And again, is there a warning coming? I would say probably, and we'll probably see it. I don't know.
If other people have had visions or experiences, please leave them in the comments, because we just don't know what's out there, and we don't know how much the Lord is speaking to us. And you might use this platform for us to have a conversation, a dialogue with, to share it to other people. So leave your comments below.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. And the most important thing is you are loved. You really are. by a God who just loves the dickens out of you. And again, why does he love us like this? I don't even know why. So may God strengthen the bars of your gates. Hey, thanks for listening to the Glen podcast, sponsored by Mission Blueprint. Mission Blueprint is a nonprofit ministry started by Glen and Jamie to sanctify the family. Our income is donation-based, and we need your help. Please support us financially by going to www.mission-blueprint.org and be a part of our financial team. Thank you, and may God strengthen the bars of your gate.